Good up.
This is channel 253. Beep, boop, boop, boop.
On this episode of the Grit and Grain Podcast.
Philosophically, our beer, what happens is I want our beer, somebody drink our beer and say, well, that's good. I want more. I want more. Then it becomes self-discipline to stop. Oh. Too often.
Yeah, you sound just like my crack dealer. Well. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, where we explore and celebrate the craft beer industry, community, and history in Tacoma, Washington, and surrounding Pacific Northwest areas. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Grit and Grain Podcast, coming to you guys from the Parkway Tavern in Tacoma, Washington. My name is Matt LeClaren. I'm here, as always, with Ron Swarner.
Well, hello.
Hello, sir. Welcome back after a week.
Yes. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too. It's been a great week.
Yeah.
And then Sean Jackson's also here.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, yes.
Hello.
Yeah. Boy, are my arms tired. No, wait.
From pouring.
They just fly.
No, from pouring a new beer.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is part two of a special two-parter where we're coming close to wrapping up our first year doing this podcast and talking to some wonderful legends in this industry. Will and Mari Kemper are here to talk about beer stuff. We covered all kinds of stuff in episode 1, and there's tons of stuff to talk about in episode 2, but we should talk about what we're drinking first. Sean, what are we drinking, man?
So Anchor Steam has recently announced that fuck you, Washington, no more beer for you.
And everybody else who was getting it.
Outside of Cali, and you know, understandable, but it's sad, and it's wonderful. Couple of ours, Parky and Mary, donated us a magnum of Anchor, our special ale, circa 2012. Wow.
Yeah.
So,
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
So long, old friend. Now I know what to ask people, now that Russian River's back, they're like, oh, I'm going down to, I'm like, man, Anchor Porter.
Gotta give me that Anchor Steam.
Give me that Anchor Porter. Yep. Like, I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, I can get Pliny now. Let me get the Anchor.
Yeah. True life.
Yeah.
Dude,
Cheers.
this is wild for being...
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Kidding.
Prost.
Can taste the Douglas fir bark. We were in between episodes going through some of the memorabilia that you guys brought in, and I love the articles. There's pictures of you guys in the early '80s, and Mari, you're listed as a head brewer and a master brewer in some of these things, and I cannot I cannot even imagine how difficult that could have been at some time in the '80s.
I was Will's assistant for a while.
That's not what some of those things say.
I'm going to have to reread those articles. But we do, that was the one thing in those days that we found that people just knew Budweiser, Coors, Miller. They didn't know beers of color or different flavors than those beers. And so I would have to go to like the pubs or the taverns or the restaurants and try to convince them that they needed to try these other beers. And they were always very kind, but in the end, they didn't. It was very hard to sell our craft beer to those places.
Yep.
Still is.
And being a woman, I didn't think much of it because I'm just a very, gracious. I'm a gracious person. No, I'm a terrible person. But I never let people bother me. But there are a lot of women that were not treated kindly, that were upset about it, and they still find that the industry is, heavily male. we don't have a lot of women in our industry, and that's all. It is making changes, but it's making changes very slowly. Yeah. Anyways,
It's true.
don't mean to bring you down.
No, that's all right.
no.
That was like, you're 100% right.
Yep.
But I did, actually, I did go to a Women in Beer meeting or presentation that happened in New York City just before COVID. And that was so good. But at the time, we were, having the COVID here, but in New York City, they weren't yet having COVID. Everybody wanted to hug me, and I would say, no, I'm not hugging right now.
I'm Canadian. So.
My passport says I can't.
So Mari told the story about when we first started in the brewing business with Thomas Kemper, and then we went away various places, and then we came back and started Chuckanut. Yeah. And
I know,
so
we
we're
didn't even
talking.
get to that.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
I know.
Moving on.
but the story is that so we started Chuckanut 2008, and coming back from Istanbul, and we're still making the beers that we're familiar with. Point is lager beers. So she's taken lager beers to places, and they rejected them there, even though it's a craft beer, because they weren't IPAs. It was a very similar thing as far as a rejection, and it was very difficult for us to get going. It took some time to do it, but the point is, the beer industry changes. It's going to change again. Life is full of changes. But that was the experience we had. No, you're not bland enough. No, you're not over the top enough.
Oh, man.
And that was.
No, we've seen it all, and that is so true. When we'd have people come into Chuckanut in Bellingham, and they'd say, well, what IPA do you have? Well, sometimes we didn't even have the British-style IPA, which we were forced to make because people were asking for IPA. So we said, we don't have any. They would turn around and go out.
Oh, it's wild.
Yeah. And now lagers are like, I want a lager. And I'm like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do, right? It's like, okay. But, who knows how long that'll last or how big that will get, because we've seen a lot of things, and we've seen the seltzers, and those have come, and I feel like they're slightly gone. And now we have these other kinds of beers. There's the hazy. Those seem to be holding on now for a while. And then we have these like not ice cream, but they call them
Smoothie beers.
Smoothie beers.
Mm-hmm.
We have those now, and then we have the milkshake beers. The sweet candy cake things. And once we were we have a friend, Jason Oliver. He has Devil's Backbone in West Virginia. Mm-hmm. He made a lot of lager beers and won quite a few awards. And he said to me once, those beers are just for people that don't like the taste of beer. And I thought, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. It's okay, they'll learn.
Yeah. Well, they're coming around to the lagers, so I'm feeling like there's hope.
That's everybody's journey. You got to start somewhere, and then you kind of go to you go to IPAs, then you might get into like stouts and stuff, and then you kind of reel back down, and you're just like, man, I just want a Hellas lager, please.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where you just coast for the rest of your life.
Well, let me also add some. Mari's talking IPA. That's an American IPA. To me, a British IPA. So to
Very
be different. Why the hell do you want to be like everybody else in God's creation? That's the idea. Yeah. But to have a really nice British IPA, that's not done. That's not even done well in Britain.
Yeah.
You go to Britain, and it's fascinating.
It was interesting.
World War I
Britain versus Canada. Here we go.
Last year, we went to the London Beer Festival, if anybody's interested. That is a fabulous beer festival. And we went there, and we also collaborated with a British brewery. It was called Wild Card Brewery. And they said, well, what kind of beer do you want to make? Well, Will says, let's make something that you guys make. And so then it was like, okay, well, let's do, blah, blah, blah. And Will says, okay, let's do a golden ale, right? Mm-hmm. So we go over there and we're doing the golden ale. And then we have a discussion with them. Well, what kind of hops do you think would be good? And they do not like British hops.
No. They bring American hops over.
Yeah.
They do.
That's right.
They use that now. And part of it is, those hops, the British hops, are a little bit, I'm not going to say musty.
Earthy is more positive.
Earthy, muddy,
Fugly.
Ugly. But, out of all the hops, what was the one hop they said that they're okay? The British hops.
Kent Goldings.
Kent Goldings.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
And that's what they all agreed. Because then we went across the street and met another brewer with another brewery that was across the little road where we were. And he said the same thing, They're tired of the British hops. They really don't like it. But we haven't heard that kind of talk from German brewers. But they are trying now. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but we did make a Bavarian IPA.
I was just about to ask you about this beer.
And that originally we made it. It was called New World Hop Ale, and the thing is, it uses New World German hops. So the Germans are growing different hops, but for them, if they introduce a new hop, they have to take away an older hop.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
By law, I don't know.
It's structured bizarrely in
Yeah.
that. To introduce means you have to subtract.
That's
Yeah.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did make the New World, and then we saw that the Vitamins in their test brewery, they made a beer and they with the newer hops, and they called it Bavarian IPA. So we said, hey, let's call ours Bavarian IPA, BIPA for short. And so that we just did that switch over this year. And we plan to continue to brew that one because really that is, the way of the future. And some people do enjoy the, fruitier hops. My preference is the more flowery or the noble hops that come out of Germany. And
The determination of hops, though, it's industry controlled, and the factors as far as susceptibility to disease and how that works. So you might have the best hop ever, but it's not going to go. It's not going to fly if there are issues with production and how much can produce it. So that's what drives the industry, which will be interesting going forward with climate change considerations.
Yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. Is the fruity character like what the new school German hops are bringing to the table versus like their kind of old sort of herbal and floral type?
Yeah, these
aromas?
are the newer ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the names. I drank too much beer now to remember.
Yeah, Sean.
My bad.
Mandarina is one of those.
Right.
I can't. Do you guys know some of those newer hops?
Whole melon is a new one.
Yes, whole melon. Yeah, we've used that. That actually, those are I think the two that are in that BIPA. Mm-hmm. But I think it will be something that other people pick up, other brewers pick up and they explore as well.
They're putting those hops in American, IPAs for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, it wouldn't take much for them to just kind of make like an old world beer base and then play around with the expression of those two hops, and you could get a lot of different unique things.
Oh yeah, I think so.
I love
that. There's so many, and we're working with hop dealers here in the United States, for certain beers that we make. And just recently, I think it was our Skagit Tulip Ale. It's always every year we make it with Skagit Valley malt and Yakima hops. And this year we had an actual, one of the farmers who actually created the particular hop, don't ask me what the name was, he came out and he brewed it with us.
Cool.
And that was very fun. Yeah. So it's nice to see the industries coming together to create things.
I have to add the technical consideration is for all of our ales. I don't play around with yeast strains. To me, you have to have a very healthy yeast going, and so understand repitching, all the harvesting considerations. So to be in casual with your yeast, and the analogy I use is, it's like a football team. So you throw healthy yeast out there. You don't throw out little old ladies and kids and such. So you want to make sure your yeast, because that is so important.
Sure.
Now, and so the strains we only use for lagers 3470, but the strain we use for all of our ales, it comes from Cologne, Germany, and. Okay, the story is that when we were in Istanbul, my assistant brewer was trained in Cologne, and so we went there he had this yeast that he brought there. We did go to Cologne, by the way, for research. But, and that's fascinating, too, because the cultures is in Cologne vary considerably. It's amazing. So what you taste, in contests in America for culture, they're very similar. But in Cologne, no, that's not the case. It's wonderful, the variety you have. Anyway, so my Istanbul brewer, he had this yeast strain that was wonderful, and it came out of a laboratory in Cologne. And so when we wanted to try, when it came back to America, and why we use it, by the way, is the characteristics of it as far as the cleanliness. But it's about, I'd say it's about the most lager-like ale strain I've ever come across. Mm-hmm. As far as production conditions, it literally is between an ale and a lager as far as how we do temperatures and everything like that.
Right.
But technically, it's an ale strain. But anyway, so that's what we use for all of our ale beers. So when we started Chuckanut, we tried to get the yeast strain in, and it was just too
legally we tried to.
Legally, yeah. So that's suggestive, isn't it?
More complicated than people might think.
We tried to work with the government.
Yeah. So no, it's just too much paperwork, and we finally gave up on it. And then we arranged a meeting, so we're going to Bamberg, Germany, to visit the Weirmans, and we made it arranged for the yeast. We had a couple of slants sent to Bamberg, and so as we're coming into Bamberg, there's see this lady, Mr. Kemper, yeast. And so they had 2 Hager slants. We refrigerated, and then when we came back, I put one in my suitcase and one in my luggage. I carried one, sent it to the yeast laboratories. So it's a proprietary yeast strain for us, and
that's what we use for all the ales.
Yeah.
Wow. Which in some ways, because it's such a clean, it leaves a very clean taste.
Yep.
When you're doing, let's say, the British ales, or you're doing other like stouts or porters, our beer tastes a little bit lighter, and I think it has to do with our yeast strain. But we don't want to get.
Yeah, the yeast strain is addressing the production conditions, attenuation, all that good stuff. But once again, it's totally a matter of how you manufacture beer. There are positive and negative taste considerations. And so the idea here is to eliminate the negative, or at least give them below threshold. That's the bottom line there. And too many beers. Okay, philosophically, our beer, what happens is I want our beer, somebody drink our beer and say, well, that's good, I want more. Then it becomes self-discipline to stop.
Oh.
Too often.
You sound just like my crack dealer. Well,
Well, that's a Cross U beer, But that's the thing.
This is on you now, bro.
That's the thing. Too often, you're fighting that. You're fighting that drinkability. That's not what I want. That's a target. And what detracts? No, the positive things are there. It's the other things that should not be present in such quantity. They're the negative flavors.
Sure.
And so, yeah.
And like Will says, okay, maybe you didn't hit this mark, okay, and then maybe you didn't do this right, and then maybe you kind of messed up this part. And then when all those little missteps are added up, there's a big deterrent to what your flavor profile is
In
at the
actual
very
final
end.
beer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Basically what it is, it's a philosophical approach to making beer, but what it is like, oh yeah, for addressing something, how many steps are in making beer? I don't know, 10, 20, 100, I don't know. But the point is, there's so many of them. And on one point you say, oh, that's insignificant. I totally agree. That's insignificant. However, if you add all the insignificance up, they become significant.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's kind of our philosophy. I don't know if you've noticed now through all your podcasts, but brewers are extremely philosophical.
Well, and to backtrack a little bit, Chuckanut opening in 2008 and being ahead of the lager curve, right, by a lot. But then you go to the Great American Beer Festival
First time.
in 2009
Yeah.
and basically stole all their medals. Right? So, I mean, like, I feel like the industry respect for what you've been doing has been, like, again, that demigod thing. Like, it's true life. Like, when brewers come through and your beers are on tap, like, that's what's getting consumed. And,
Right.
That's
that was, I think it was nice, just, people, at least in the industry, recognizing the greatness right out the gate.
Yeah.
Like, here, this is open. Bam. Let's
Yeah.
get all loggers, too. You medaled
Yeah.
everything loggers.
Right. That's right.
And small
and
brewery
we were
of the year.
small.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't think that's been done since.
I was
With 4 awards,
Yeah.
all loggers. Then 2 years later, we won again.
Yeah. Levin, you took all their
with
stuff again.
2 lagers, but our 2 ales were Alt and Kolsch, which are very they're what you call they're cold ferment, somewhat cold fermented compared to other ales.
Yeah.
And all this is happening while Josh Pfriem is cleaning your kegs.
Yeah. And Kevin Davey.
I started to compose a list that I wanted to read to you of people that had worked with and for you, but then it just got rough and long. And the idea was like I was gonna start reading names and be like, okay, tell me who I missed, but
Yeah.
But he
Yeah,
realized
there
we only
are-
have 2 hours.
yeah, it was like here's one episode, Sean asking what he wants Santa for Christmas. Like, no one wants to listen to that.
It is like there's a couple of like measurements of like how great a brewery is, and one of them is like this brewery is your favorite brewer's favorite brewery kind of thing, and you guys
Yeah.
have always sort of had that, and that still exists kind of to a degree. There's lots of breweries in Washington that kind of fall into that. Headless Mumby is like one that I always think of in that way.
okay.
Like
Yeah.
this is where brewers go to drink when they're near it,
Right.
and that's. But then the other thing is how many people have left working for you guys and then started other
That's
world-class
right.
projects.
No,
it's
it's
wonderful.
so true, and
There's
it's
gotta be,
really
like, some
great.
crazy
I mean,
pride in
actually, it's even in Istanbul. We took our brewer Phil, and we said, "We think you would like it in Istanbul. Do you want to go over there and brew for them for a while?" And sure enough, he and his wife said, "Yeah, I think we'd like that." They're still there 5 years later.
Wow,
Yeah.
good for them.
Yeah. So we have more than just national treasures that we've created. We have some international ones. as well.
International, baby.
Do you guys keep tabs on all of your like international projects that you've done? Like, do you check in and just sort of?
We do some of them. We've lost touch with our Mexico friends, but we definitely stay in touch with our Istanbul friends.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, no. It's a nice way to know people. I used to take Ikebana, and my teacher used to say, "Friends through flowers," but we have friends through beer.
Hops or flowers? That was the least offensive thing I've ever said. Yeah, we are going to take a super quick break, but we'll come back in just a minute. So stick around.
Hey everyone, this is producer Doug at Channel 253. We have a big event coming up. Join Grit and Grain and everyone at Channel 253 on June 29th at the Press Room on Opera Alley for an awesome night of podcasting. Here's the plan. At 5:30, we'll get started with the Grit and Grain podcast. The beer crew will talk about Tacoma and its beer history. At 6:20 or so, the interchangeable white ladies will grace us with some hot takes and generally keep us laughing. Then at 7 o'clock, Nate Bowling will host an honorary Nerd Farmer episode 200 with some of his greatest guests, including Matt Driscoll, Jenna Hanchard, Will James, and Melissa Santos. Tickets are free, but we ask you to reserve them online at channel253.com. We hope to see you there.
Welcome back, everybody. I will take it. Thank you guys for hanging out during the break. As always, a quick shout out to Doug Mackey, our wonderful producer.
Woo!
Yay, Doug. And Channel 253, wonderful network of local podcasts that if you follow them and listen, you can stay connected to Tacoma and stay up to date with all the stuff that's happening. There's food stuff, there's local issues stuff, there's beer stuff, and it's awesome. So go to channel253.com/membership to check them out. And we're drinking new beer.
Yeah.
Can you guys tell us about this?
Yeah. Oh, I was going to let
Oh, yes, I'll
Sean
do it.
Yeah.
talk about it.
With pleasure.
Yes. Here comes some
'cause
adjectives.
So it is a barrel-aged barley wine from Chuckanut. And my cute story about it was, we do a barley wine week and a wrap-up brunch festival here. Tornado in San Francisco is kind of where my predecessor bosses had attended the festival, and he and I were both passionate about barley wine, but that's what he wanted to kind of bring to Tacoma. And so the same lovely couple that brought us gave us the Anchor Steam, or the Anchor beer, he was showing me the list because he was going to be in the area, and I'm reading through the Tornado barley wine list from this year, and I'm like, yeah, never heard of that, got it. And I get to Chuckanut.
What was it doing there? I didn't.
Well,
say
that was
any.
my same fucking question. I don't think I really get hurt feelings about not getting beers. Am I wrong?
No.
Do I have temper tantrums?
Not at all.
I saw this and I almost smashed flipped the table up. I was like, how did this beer drive right by us and get to there? I was beside myself, and then our wonderful rep a couple weeks later, Mike Poulsbo, was like, he's like, I got a big surprise to you. And I was like, man, it better be fucking Chuckanut barley wine. And it was.
Yeah.
How do you know about that?
That's neat.
I'll have to remember what time of year do you do your festival?
April.
Okay.
Yeah, and a tail end of April, and like I say, this is within a 3 weeks time window. All this is happening, but I mean, crying over beer. I try to compose myself, but not this time. Anyhow, it's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Imagine that. You made something
This is one of the
correct.
first forays for us into barley wine. We did it as a collaboration with North Fork. Eric, I don't know if you guys know Big Eric, we call him. But he came over and brewed with one of our brewers while the rest of us brewers were down in Portland brewing with Ben at Breakside, making that amazing Eisenbach. But Rick and Eric were making the barley wine. Then we put it we put it in the tanks, and then we put it into stainless. And then our neighbors, who are Westland Distillery, they have their bottling house behind our brewery in Burlington at the Port of Skagit. And they said, hey, anytime you want barrels. And we said, well, we'd love some barrels. So what we decided was we would put half of it in the barrels and the other half in the stainless. Yeah. And then we let it sit, it was well over a year. And we tapped just the stainless first. And I'm thinking, oh, this isn't bad, I'm not a big beer person, but I actually kind of liked it. I mean, big.
On behalf of my client, barley wine person.
I mean, big beer meaning like the percentage of this is a 10.3% beer. I am a sessionable beer person.
Punctuation.
So anyways, I tasted that and I thought, wow, that's kind of good. And the color was a little light, but I looked in the books and it was spot on to all the British style barley wines. And so then when we did the barrel aged, I think it was like a month later, it was like, whoa, this tastes like the barley wine that I'm not so sure I like.
This tastes like America.
This has a lot of wine notes to it. I mean, it's malty, but there's the wine, and then at the end, the kind of the wood comes out of it, and it leaves your mouth with a very nice feeling, I would say, kind of bubbly and just
mine's tingling.
It's very cool.
Oh,
tingling,
got all the tinglings all over.
But it isn't hot. So many of
Not at
these
all.
kind of beers are hot.
Yeah.
And I don't get the hot from this at all.
Well, it's funny listening to like Will talk in the last episode about his philosophy being reducing all of the negative things that might come with utilizing any ingredient, and so to have something like a barley wine, which often does come with those extra things, you kind of just cope with them because it's delicious either way. But yeah, this is just very clean toffee and creme brulee and vanilla, and there's just nothing else that really gets in the way of those things. And after hearing you say out loud that was your philosophy, and then drinking this, it's funny how well it kind of comes through
Matches
in
the
a beer that should be a bit more complicated and messy often.
Also, I think it's good that our industry doesn't really have like tabloid style rags, because I can already picture the cover like Maury Kemper hates beer, and it's like you would picture like stabbing a puppy while you're kicking a baby,
She's been a fraud all these years.
Oh God!
Is quote not a big beer person.
Oh man, you guys are
but you do have to be careful. I mean, this high ABV is up there.
Caution is
so.
Makes you say
recommended
crazy
for
things.
some. For some, not all. Yeah. Take myself out of that PSA. Please and thank you.
How is Chuckanut going these days? I feel like you guys have been very busy lately.
Very busy, yes.
Yeah, well, basically,
making farmers happy.
when we due to COVID and
that's
factors associated, so we closed down our Bellingham facility, and we moved
is
the
a
brewery,
lovely structures
brewery,
facility,
little
yeah.
brewery, tin barrel brewery into storage, and our present brewery. We've expanded from 7 to 17,000 square feet.
Holy cow.
And we're going to move a small brewery in there so we can diversify much more so. But right now, what we've had to do for these last 2 years is just maintain production at a limited basis there. And as I said, we're getting past that. So literally a couple of months ago, we finally were able to start moving in the equipment from storage, and we're going to kill once we get going.
I like it.
But we're going to, the total
Talk that
capacity
shit,
is
Will.
going to be doubled, tripled, and quadrupled that potential. So with that, for example, what we've done is our kegging line. It's coming from a company called Lambrix out of Belgium, because it is technically as fine as you can get with what we need. And I searched around America, but I didn't find anything like that. I wish I had. So
Get your shit
we're going to
together,
work with
America.
that. But the other thing I want, so it's a 10-barrel system. You engineer a system, 10, 20, 50, 100. But I think a 10-barrel system is almost optimum. It's not a kitchen stove type of thing. Once you get too much, you get much larger. And I'm talking 20 barrels plus. What happens is the sheer engineering, the sheer dimensional consideration as far as heat transfer and things like that, you don't have the control. So our 10-barrel system, which I might add, has won most of our medals, easily most of our medals, which has been in storage. We're going to come online with that again.
That's great.
We're doing some things, such as a malting situation, the milling. We're going with a 4-roller mill with a 10-barrel system. That's absurd. Why? Because it's to optimize the milling. And so that's one aspect of it. When I talked to a milling supplier, I said, I don't give a damn about efficiency or anything like that. Yeah, so brewers can talk in terms of, okay, you got to have 95% fit. I don't give a damn about that. I give a damn about making sure that the quality of that milling is as optimum as possible.
Yes.
So that's a start.
Yeah.
Nice. Man, I'm on board with that.
We're trying to really utilize a lot more of the sustainable type equipment. So we'll, instead of getting a natural gas boiler, which is what the 20-barrel system there, and years ago when we built that brewery, we used. We've now are moving to an electric boiler, which is way more sustainable. And then we're also talking now about capturing CO2 to use for the kegging and canning machines, where it's CO2 that we capture from our process. So, and this is a new thing for small breweries. Some of the bigger breweries like New Belgium or any of the ones that are larger, they can do that on a bigger scale. But this is on a small scale for a small brewery. And we were just talking to the person this past week about doing that, because I don't know if anybody knows, but CO2 was during COVID. It was hard to get, and then they were telling you we're going to raise the price, and then they every other month they're getting a letter, we're afraid we're not going to have enough CO2, and that kind of stuff happens. Fortunately, we spooned all our beers, and I don't know if you guys know what spooning is. It's a German process in order to capture the CO2 that your beer is making during fermentation.
So at the end of the fermentation, you put on a spooning device, and so it builds up the pressure, of course, but it also adds the concentration of CO2 that's necessary in the finished product. So you work with these concepts there. It's a pressure temperature consideration with these, and we're able to do that. So all of our beers are naturally carbonated. And
it's a natural carbonation, which is another reason why when you drink a Chuckanut beer, a lot of times it doesn't fill you up as much as some other beers, and that's because it's all natural carbonation.
Well, it's also
that we use.
Yeah, I look
and the
at
process.
Yeah, the chemistry behind the carbon dioxide. How pure is it? And so that might be a question. Usually it's okay, but the point is I have absolutely no concern with the quality of that. Additionally, it goes one step further, because what happens is when you carbonate beer, I'm talking about something that most people don't address really. It's head retention, foaming, and stuff like that. Yep. So you think in terms of that, your foam, they're foam positive and foam negative aspects. These are associated with head retention, all that. So when you manufacture beer, the more you create foam, the more you will destroy foam positive aspects. So when you're talking about carbonation and you look at a carbonating device, obviously, usually there's some, visually you can see what's going on. But the point is, once again, it's a very slight thing. But if you're addressing foam quality, head retention, all those as a brewer, well, this is one aspect of it. So by minimizing any kind of transfer foaming and such, you are creating a product that is most optimum for that consideration.
Will, can you say foam positive one more time? Just say more things like that. Or spooning.
That's a big foam negative.
Yeah. I was just thinking, the spooning device is, of course, a German device. And it was made because of the Rheinhuskgebot. The Reinheitsgebot was a rule in Bavaria when they were starting to make beers and throw all kinds of weird things into it, that the king said, I'm sorry, we can't do that. We're only going to be using the
smoothie
malt,
sours
the
here.
hops. Yeah, right. The malt, the hops, the water, and the yeast, And so then CO2, they had to figure it out. How are they going to put the CO2 in? Because it's an extra ingredient. So they created the spooning devices. Some people might say it's called spooning, but if you really want to know how it's pronounced,
That's what Sean and I do.
spooning.
I was just going to say, Ron and I are about to upgrade our terminology. Well, you guys spooning the other night? Like, actually, we weren't. We were spooning.
So does
actually,
this
the
mean
Reinheit-
more cans?
What's
With the
that?
bigger expansion, more cans?
Well,
Yeah.
we're hoping.
Okay.
Yeah,
we
you
just
know.
have a single canner, and that's the thing too, as far as the evolution of canning. So 5 years ago, I looked at canning operations there, and they're too linear, let's say, and they had openness to atmosphere. So that time, and certainly when we talk 10 and 20 years ago, bottling was a point being here because you have the control, and think in terms of like the open area of a bottle versus a can and how it's actually done. So the term is a rotary canner. So craft brewing has got to the point where I feel, so they've addressed, canning is the way to go. I have no problem. I think it's wonderful. But technically speaking, it really wasn't good 5 years ago and past. But they've addressed those issues. So now it's a preferable way to go.
Yeah.
The engineering portion of your resume, too, is something that, I mean, when I ask, I've heard about opening Chuckanut and just the array of valves and
Well,
transitional pieces that you already had fabricated, ready to go for whatever problem. And then also the digital aspect of it as
Right.
far as like being state of the art and,
with the computer system.
yes,
Yeah.
sitting there having your morning coffee and getting your, checking your hot liquor tank, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the fermentation. We have different aspects. Like when we come down to lagering and harvesting yeast, so we reduce it 1 degree Fahrenheit per hour for the sake of the yeast, not put any thermal stress upon the yeast. But the computerization, that is so important. Before I talked to Bro, no, I don't want to do it. Well, hell, let's go back 100 years. Would you use a pump? Because that wasn't used. That's absurd. Use what is available. Use what helps making beer brewing better.
Yeah, and with our expansion, we are going to continue to, upgrade that computer system so that we're still moving along, but we've upgraded because things have changed since, Chuckanut's been around since 2008, and really the tech industry has gone through quite a few changes. So, you have to consider that you do need to upgrade as you move along in life. It's very important. We really feel that you do have to stay up to the standards of where you've been, but make it even better.
Yeah, computerization for me, what it's done is it's eliminated a lot of variables, a lot of concerns, obviously. So it's very rigid, which is wonderful. And so if something goes awry, things go wrong, all the time. So the point is, how many variables do you want to look at? Well, I'm pretty confident there, so that's something there. Mm-hmm. And so it makes life easier, certainly brewing much easier. Yeah.
And making a better product. That's what it comes down to, right, guys?
Exactly.
Yeah.
which you've evidenced for a long time. What's the chance that there's another fuck up story floating around? I feel like a greedy piggy asking for more. You know what? I can tell you a quick one while maybe you jog your memory banks, and I'll try to think of another one. I don't know if it's a fuck up story. It's just more of a thing that happened. I was a assistant brewer at Mud Shark, and we got in a particular acid to pacify a new tank.
Oh,
So pretty on the
Right.
yes,
Yeah.
on the potent side, and there was a hole in my boot,
Oh, jeez.
and like tiniest hole, like we're talking pin size hole,
Yeah.
but over the course of the process, it felt like a tickle. It felt like someone was tickling my foot, and I kicked my boot off and stripped my sock, and I did it fast enough to where it was like an invisible drill. And I can just watch my flesh being eaten away until it got to the bone.
Oh my God! Really?
It's right there.
Do you have a scar?
I got the scar right there.
Oh wow!
Which it's a short distance from the the ridge of where your foot and ankle go to the bone. It's not
Fucking God.
we're not talking like brown recluse like your uncle, like stick your finger in this hole in my leg. Like, no, it's not that bad. But
What was your life?
fucking rad, Matt. My life is fucking rad.
So
That-
much information.
That did just jog something for me.
Yes.
No way.
Here we go.
We have a friend that has a brewery in Australia, in Melbourne, Australia. And actually, it was a very cool thing because Will collaborated, and they made 2 of the beers before we even got there. And then when we were there, we helped with 2 of the beers. But what happened was Will was on the deck, and they said, Will, throw in the hops. And so Will threw in the hops, but what happened?
It scalded my arm because what happened was that in Australia, they have it was a positive pressure situation there, so they had to condense evaporation, which made a positive pressure. Once you open the manway, you have that. So by throwing in the hops regularly, then I exposed and it happened like that. I scalded my arm.
Yeah. But they knew about this magic cream. And they we don't know where it came from, but she took us to the drugstore and they got this cream and they put it on Will's arm and it healed in like a day. It was
Phosphoric acid, it might work.
I was going to say.
So
I don't know if
mining,
we have
right?
it in America. It was something in Australia.
There's this cream that the kids around here have been using on their burns, and there's a degree of silver in it, which makes
right.
that Australia mining thing. But it's like,
Maybe, we don't
obviously
know.
it's super inexpensive. But oh my God,
If
does
it
it
works.
work
Did it
so
work?
freaking good?
No, wait, he
I
hasn't
don't think
finished
that
the
was it.
story.
No, yeah, no. It's like I was like, I bet my britches
Surely
that,
you
that
nearly
Like
choked
a
on this.
there was some
similar
silver in that
A
that cream.
similar thing happened with Will when we opened Thomas Kemper. Do you remember when the... What
Oh well, I
happened?
was working with something and it
blew up on him.
steam. So a container, and the point is, the top came off, and so it scalded my arm again. And,
man.
had to go to the
And
doctor.
no
But-
silver cream.
No silver cream that time.
yeah,
and that lasted
No.
a while,
Yeah,
that one. He still has a scar, I think. Do you?
No, that's my face.
Well done. And
Okay.
love you guys. Thank you very much for doing this.
Yeah. We still have to talk about Peanut one day.
You'll have to be back for part 3. I think.
Oh, for
sure.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll do that. For sure. Thank you so much.
Yep.
All right, Grit and Grainers. Email us at cheers@gritandgrainpodcast.com with your comments, opinions, and thoughts if Mari and Will fell in love with other Bellingham streets instead of Chuckanut Drive. Their beers would have maybe have a different street surname like Elm Street Keller Night or Morning Beach Dinkle or Crystal Pond Crystal Light or Laser Oktoberfest or Swamp Creek Skagit Blonde. You can subscribe to Grit and Grain on Amazon, Apple Music, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. And please leave us a review. Also check us out on Channel 253 and gritgrainpodcast.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for episode notes, beer news, and barely audible things muttered under the breath of the Grit and Grain studio sketch artist, John. The dead guy hat and Rainier's sweatband are a piece of cake. I could do those in my sleep. But his cheekbones under that beard, God, I'd kill for those. like a supermodel on an all-laxative diet. Hold that pose. Shit, he missed it. I know. I'm procrastinating on the nipples. We'll do that. We'll do the mouth first. Okay, he's not smiling. Maybe he's concentrating on Monday's Randall. I'm drawing him serious now. Oh no, he saw some barley wine and smiled. Crap. Eyes, you're nice pies. Okay, nipple time. Deep breath. You can do this. You're good enough. You've got nothing to lose. Everyone knows they're erect during the taping. Be a pro. Like Matterhorn. Ah, stupid broken pencil. Maybe I can borrow his pencil on his ear. If this podcast is not what you expected, please alter expectations. Sometimes I feel like a chuckanut. Sometimes, well, wait. Chuckanut always brings me mounds of joy. No such thing as a bad time to visit Tacoma. No such thing as too much barley wine. Tune in next Friday for more sweet chatter. Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks again for tuning in. Don't forget to follow us at Grit and Grain Podcast wherever you get your social media and catch new episodes every Friday. Cheers.
Channel 253 is a member-supported podcast network. I'm producer Doug Mackey, and I'm asking you to become a member and show your support. Go to channel253.com/membership to join. Thank you. Grit and Grain is part of the Channel 253 podcast network. Check out our other shows: Nerd Farmer, Interchangeable White Ladies, Move to Tacoma, Crossing Division, Citizen Tacoma, What Say You, We Are Tacoma, Flounders B Team, and Taco Man.
This is Channel 253.
Get up.